Why I think semen retention is a myth. From someone with 5 years experience. Long read. Dunno folks. I've tried it for years. I've been on this bandwagon for a long time, questioning why I still do this. What prompted me to write this is a culmination of years of experience, more so to decipher the confusion of the Nofap movement and other things. For me, as I continued on, my streaks began to develop more and more psychological problems that I attributed to flatline. Despite being free of porn for about a year. Not to mention only viewing porn maybe 5 or 6 times in the past 3 years. I've come to a conclusion that the majority collective mindset will not listen to reason, rather, find a reason to be right you why you are wrong. I recently had a wet dream and I realized a few things. I actually enjoyed the presence of others for once. Before that, on my many streaks, it seems eye contact became impossible. What semen retention has turned me into is a personality that is emotionless, stoic, without feeling. I feel nothing. I hardly ever laugh. I have very little energy for life. I have lost the ability to socialize. The list goes on. It seems whenever I pass day 23 on these Nofap hard mode streaks, the brain fog develops. Becomes so detrimental, I can hardly function at times. Technically I'm on a 120-day streak at the moment, if you don't include my wet dream 46 days ago. The majority of this summer was spent working in the morning, coming home and then remaining in my room for 5 hours until I go to sleep, and then repeating the process. I believe long-term celibacy puts you in your own world. I believe that it tends to close off your vibration to others. Let's start with the proof. When Conor McGregor was asked if he abstained before a fight, his response was, he does not believe in such superstitions. He also said that he has sex as much as possible. Not bad for one of the most successful MMA fighters to ever exist, and obtaining net worth of over $120 million. Then there is Ric Flair. One of the most iconic pro wrestlers to exist from the 1980s and beyond. In a recent documentary he revealed that part of his life routine included jerking off 3 times a day. Then there's Brandon Carter. A bodybuilder and fitness guru who's ripped to the gills and can be seen in his videos bench pressing hot women over his head. His business is a 6-figure income earner, and is honest in his admission that he absolutely has to FAP in order to get any work done. So in my opinion, the science behind Nofap is completely illegitimate, and the anecdotal stories of college guys getting a little boost of confidence is simply something that is minute neurochemically small. To really succeed at Nofap, one literally has to pretty much ignore the existence of women. Because even if you were to gaze at women, that is enough to trigger the sexual feelings for any man. From there one would live a life of being hot and bothered without relief. And if we think of nature and what the most natural thing to do is, we think of eating an organic diet of whole foods that grow from the earth, drinking clean water, doing things in moderation, limiting internet usage, etc., would straying away from all sexual feelings or glances towards females be the natural thing to do? Do the animals in the wild observe this strict religious type of suppression within themselves? If doing the natural thing is healthy for us, I'm not sure. All I know is my old dog Toby used to run towards the first female dog he would see and start humping on it. I'm not recommending you do that, by the way. But it isn't just my anecdotal experience of doing this for many years that has led me to sort of abandon this practice. It is the witch hunt mentality of anyone who has opposing experiences in the Nofap community themselves that get voted down, insulted, or cast out. Semen leaves my body. And I feel sharp, relaxed, calm, clean, and sociable. Doesn't this go against the very nature of what Nofap is about? Many claim the exact opposite. It seems when I go on these long retention streaks, my mind just becomes so clouded and my energy becomes so stagnated I cannot function like a normal person anymore. I can only do very base minimal level actions in life, and most of my time is spent laying around. Even when I force myself to go to work, go for a jog, eat healthy, etc., there tends to be a spiritual weight that accumulates with semen retention. I can't quite put it into words or explain it to anybody here. It just feels like not just my body, but the air around me and even my vehicle that I drive in feels like I just added 300 pounds to it. I can confirm retaining semen does create some kind of weight or force behind you. The problem is that people advocate meditation and other qigong rituals to circulate that energy. These exercises can be ambiguously beneficial as there isn't really a personal anecdote for everyone. Circulating your sexual energy between your balls and up to your spine and your head might feel good to you, for others they may be so sexually did they don't even know what to feel. Meditation worked for me for a few months a few years ago. Then failed. It got to the point where I can only have a clear mind if I meditated for 2 hours. So there I was, 90 days into a streak, meditating 2 hours a day for about 6 months. But my brain just, or maybe it was my spirituality, all I know is that I ended up even more alienated from society, finding myself even more mentally disconnected from reality, and I ended up at a Buddhist monastery out in the hills. I stopped communicating with my family. Then I realized I needed to wake the fuck up. Upon reading these things, the trigger response from a lot of pro-retention, impro-nofap falls along the line of this. And I've been told this before. Do you want to be an average weak-ass fapper person? Etc. In fact, anything that opposes the view of retaining semen and only using it for childbirth is met with vast opposition and scorn. Yet the people I have given examples of before have been successful despite their blatant admittance to being sexually active people. Then there are the examples of misquotes by the Nofap community, of famous people who supposedly did Nofap. They name-dropped people like 50 Cent, Kanye West, Muhammad Ali, etc. Part 1. Part 2. The interesting thing is that these quotes are completely taken out of context and do not indicate the personal sexual habits of any of these people. Kanye West vaguely mentions that people go out to clubs because they tried to get laid, and somehow this is interpreted as he is on the Nofap mission, which is used by the Nofap community. And if you've seen his wife, I digress. Regardless, I felt there was something to semen retention, so I kept at it, thinking perhaps there was a lesson I can learn or was something I was doing wrong. But here I am. I have given this year the best of my celibate self. Yet I'm still here, making very little progress at life. It's as though everything has slowed down, and I move inch by inch towards my goal slowly. Then there is that 1 week a year ago that I did happen to porn binge. The following day I had set myself a little money prayer. The weird thing is that I made more money that week than I have made in the past 4 months of practicing semen retention. Definitely I was able to increase my vibrations, which leads me to believe that retaining all of this old semen, not rejuvenating oneself, leads someone to continuously have little vibrations regardless if they strive for higher ones or not. Yet there's still those reports of those guys transforming their lives dramatically, becoming social butterflies, having animal magnetism with women, etc. For me it is quite the opposite. In fact, before I even got into all of this Nofap stuff I never had a problem with women. Seems only lately I've had the problems. Not all retention is bad. I believe there are differences between each ejaculatio. Frequency. There's a difference between a guy who does it once every day, once every 2 weeks, and then once a year. I suppose this is where the distinction lies. What type of life one wants to live. For me, it seems to happen after the 3rd week. Perceived superpowers are supposed to accumulate. For me, perhaps there's a slight increase in focusing on accomplishing tasks. That's about it. In the 2 years I have measured my progress in a few different jobs I've had, I've actually the same if not better, in some jobs, following wet dreams. Which leads me to believe that when we do hard mode semen retention for prolonged periods of time, we are venturing into a different vibrational reality that most people are not functioning on. Or a very lonely road. When I asked if people were either social or antisocial prolonged semen retention streaks, none if few had any answers. I am not saying there is not any benefits in retaining semen. I am saying that it probably falls somewhere in between day 7 to 23 where the magic happens. It depends on the individual and their energy levels. I specifically recall several instances where attraction was at an all-time high, as well as my mood, relaxation, sociability. A few years ago I was on a 50-day streak. When you're on a streak that long, the general mindset I took on is, it just feels as if I'm doing this thing by myself and I am so focused on my work at accomplishing things, I don't really know how to relate to. My social skills are not up to par, generally, my energy is a bit too intense generally, my energy is a bit too intense generally, my energy is a bit too intense for some people. I've even read stories from other fapstronauts that have talked about this. My energy is so intense, people seem shy or scared of me. To me this is not necessarily the greatest of things. particularly if you are trying to come off as friendly or positive. If you're going around society with all of this uncirculated or built-up sexual energy, people are going to sense it, and it might come off as hostile. These are not the stories you read on Nofap, because they're never uploaded. I remember going to a bar just because I was bored. I was on like a 50 or 60-day streak. I recall walking up to the bouncer who was big and had a huge beard. I was trying my best to be cool and nice with him. But I could just tell how intimidated and afraid of my energy he was. Some people might enjoy this on Nofap like some kind of ego boost, but for me there was no connection, no sociability. Then there was the time after a wet dream. It was about 10 days after a wet dream. I was completely relaxed and sociable in a bar that I went to by myself. I made 4 different friends that night. It was completely easy because 50 days of tension built up in myself. Probably only like 7 days. At around that time, a girl walked up to me, stood in between my legs, and ordered a drink. WTF. Or this recent time on my last streak. I had a wet dream. I was pretty much antisocial for 70 days straight. Then I had a wet dream, and we had a 4th of July 6th family event. I was so relaxed and happy I was actually more social than anybody there. I was going around talking to everybody. I was just having a good time. This is just another thing that made me question the legitimacy of semen retention. The day before that I went for a spontaneous bike ride for about 5 miles. Which leads me to another point. I believe that retention causes some type of heavy spiritual energetic weight. I can't quite describe it, I just know that after I have a wet dream, or let's say a sexual episode, I'm able to jog or run 5 times longer than I normally can. Which leads me to believe that our sexuality is tied in with our spiritual energy, which is also tied into the regulation of our testosterone and hormones. I even read or heard somewhere that testosterone levels drop dramatically after prolonged celibacy of several months. Which I would not be surprised if that was the case, considering that, in the many years I have been practicing this, it's no surprise that I've been feeling 20 years older than I normally am. There are certain things after a wet dream that I notice that clearly go against the rules of semen retention. One of the things I immediately notice is this. 1. I am way more approachable, and people seem to initiate conversation with me. The conversations I do initiate tend to be more drawn out and longer. Eye contact is way easier. The instances where I have had blatantly hit on me always happened on day 7 to 14. One rare time on day 21. After that, in the 5 years I have been practicing semen retention and Nofap, not once has a woman hit on me after day 21. Not a single time. This is where the line becomes ambiguous. I say this because, it is during this time the journey becomes harder. After the 3rd week I really don't see any benefits from day 21 onward. If anything I become just more like a stone, stoic, emotionless, etc. This is where it becomes hard to make friends and become a different person that is just lonerized. It says if retaining for too long just causes you to become forever flatline. Of course many no-FAP noobs will jump THR gun. Or just in flatline. You need to lift weights. Etc., etc. I guess giving 5 years to this movement is enough to come to this conclusion. That long-term semen retention is unhealthy. And that I have not seen any benefits after 3 weeks. And in fact, it appears benefits diminish after 3 weeks. I also feel that, the reason why I always get hit on from day 7 to about day 10, is that is the peak vibrational energetic spot. Everyone knows about the study that just testosterone levels increase after the 7th day, so I don't need to get into that. Part 3. For me it's more of a vibrational thing. Judging upon my mood, energy levels and awareness, that seems right about the time the energy peaks, and I can get the most benefit of retention. After that, the oncoming weeks aren't really so great. For instance, I was recently on a 80-day streak. It ended with a wet dream. Now I'm on a 40-day streak. Technically I'm on day 120 of a reboot. So technically I'm already rebooted. Fuck, I've probably already rebooted like 20 times in the past 5 years. But because I've held onto dogmatic beliefs continuously perpetrated by the believers, I always was thinking I wasn't there yet. Despite adjusting to a healthy diet, adopting a new cardio regime, and continuing my physical weight training, I still feel like I'm about a 50-year-old man. It seems when a young person kills off his libido intentionally, negative consequences ensue. Lastly, I'm looking back at my endurance on one of my jobs. I had a sexual episode a year ago, and then went to work a week later. I was only on about day 5 of my streak at the time. Yet I was able to produce more work at that time than I have been able to produce in the past 6 months. I was able to get more done, thus resulting in a bigger paycheck than I've ever had in the past 6 months. According to semen retention logic, that is not possible, because wouldn't I have wasted my essence that week? Then there's just the how I feel factor. Every single streak I've ever been on, my cardio just turns to shit. Before I even discovered Nofap or semen retention, I was known to be a good runner. I was a very athletic and swift person. I could run up to a fence and leap over it with ease. Since adopting the semen retention principle over the past 5 years, I have seen that diminished greatly. Contradictory, it's odd to me that I have more physical capability after a release than not. Which, again, goes against the whole retention principle. The only exception to this rule is when I used to meditate for 2 hours. That was when I truly believed that I was transmuting the energy, thus, like the Buddhist monks, I was able to maintain a lot of endurance. But because I do not adopt meditation in my life now due to the detrimental effects it has on one person, I would not go back to that lifestyle simply because I ended up in a monastery completely disconnected from reality and my own family at the time. Which leads me to the second layer of disconnect, retention. I believe retention disconnects people from reality. People keep telling themselves they are doing well and they are doing better, but I don't believe it at this point. Really, because I've experienced it for the past 5 years, and a lot of the people that I see that talk about it claim a lot of benefits but never have proof. Most don't even have girlfriends, are unable to keep a relationship. And I doubt many that claim to have benefits even have social lives. I think it is an energetic principle and law.